This square that we were looking, oops, not that square, this square here, which is 8 moons across. Da Vinci left us a scale at the bottom. If you divide the scale up, you get two large sets of units here. This is 432, this is 864. He's actually drawn on his scale the size of the Sun, because it's half of this distance here. It's exactly half of 1,728. Here's the Moon. You can draw the Moon. 1, 2, 3 of those. 3 of those is the standard way of finding the Earth for in terms of the size of the Moon for sacred geometries. If you take 11 of those units, you have the size of the Earth. If you have 3 of those units, you have the size of the Moon. The unit is 720, so even if you didn't know the size of the Earth's diameter, once you have the Moon's diameter, you can divide it by 3 to get 72, and then multiply that by 11. 10 times 72 is 720. Plus 1 more 72 is 792. Look on the internet, the diameter of the Earth is 7,920 miles across. And it seems to be encoded in Da Vinci's scaling that he's using here. Smaller scaling is 18. Pentagons are pretty hard to place together, but the way I was looking at it at that time, I'll just explain where I was coming from. Jean Michel saw it as a temple. Da Vinci looks at it like it's a square. 8 moons. Now, possibly, if you draw a moon here, then you can draw a geometric figure of a rectangle. You can go out to a square. You can keep on going to a pentagon. Now, this should be the place around here where pentagons should be drawn. That's in theoretical geometry. And maybe that square is this 8 moon diameter here, this width here. That is the square. They've just chopped off a little bit to be an octagon. So I started looking at whether or not we were looking at an octagon, and that Da Vinci was wrong. Well, not wrong, but maybe he was just hiding a few of these things to stop the church authorities from arresting him, maybe. Maybe he knew more than what he was supposed to know. This pentagon still keeps on. It's pretty hard to determine its exact position. It's a very difficult thing to work with. Squares are pretty easy, triangles are pretty easy. What I found was that if you have a moon here, you can't do much. The moon represents 2 because it's 1 in the center, and then 2 is this point of locus. Then you have 3, a triangle, that would be 3 moons across in a circle, 4 moons across, and so on, building up to 8 moons across. The horizon for mathematics is really 9, so this is the 9 circle of mathematics here. So we're looking at something like an interesting geometric system. When you join up all the sides, you take the side of a square, you take the side of a pentagon, you take the side of a hexagon, and join them up into lines. The other sides start to fan out. As they get larger, they start to fan out. And as you draw, as you focus on these things fanning out up to beyond the octagon, to 20-sided figures, 30-sided figures, you start to get this effect happening in the geometry. Eventually, what you can draw from this very beginning here is a... Anyone know what it is? What? Yeah, good guess, menorah. Menorah actually has 2 extra branches here. This is a 9... 2 less than menorah. This is a Hanukkah candlestick used throughout the Hebrew-speaking world, and Hanukkah falls generally around December the 20th, which all sacred geometers and archaeologists, their ears prick up. Aha! The winter solstice. We'll come back to that in a moment. I've taken the Italian corpse away and put a female in there, much more pleasant for the eyes. Here's the octagon that we were talking about before, and there's the potential square. So this is 8 moons across. If I do 5 moons across, maybe I can create this pentagon inside here. So I've got a problem. The pentagon may be this size, or it may be this other size of 1,618. When I can fix the pentagon in position, then I know what I'm doing with this geometric puzzle, this Sudoku that's been obsessing me for the last 9 years. Can anybody tell me what this grey... Sorry, they told me to do this when I was a teacher. Ask questions. Can anybody tell me what this grey area here? Now this is the sun here. Here's the sunlight here. Can anybody tell me what this is? Well, as I told you before, if you have a moon, which is, this is 3 units across, I can draw an Earth, which is 11 units across, and drop it in there on the center of this diagram. So suddenly I have Earth, grey, I have sunlight around it, and that's interesting because the rays of the sunlight are flying through the 92 million miles of space and not doing much. But when they hit this reflective layer, they do a lot and create this light layer inside. So not only do I have a moon and a sun, I also have the Earth's relative atmosphere drawn within it as well. Gets more and more interesting, this particular diagram. Some of you might recognize John Michel's drawing of the New Jerusalem. He put 3 moons on either side, which I set out in the fields of Sunrise Festival. Pity about this year that everybody got drowned in mud over there, although I did warn them when I set it out that it was very deep in the sunset levels. I started looking around. This particular diagram in grey is from the Tao Te Ching. When the Mongols came along, they used a lot of it as firewood because the Chinese had invented paper, and it was very, very good firewood. But what was left of the Tao Te Ching is in the 12th and 13th century. 13th century, they took what magic symbols they could find. This one's called the Ruler of the South. It's a very highly regarded drawing by the Taoists because it relates to conception. It's also got something of an alchemical flask. This pictogram means to smelt or to burn. It's near the female vagina, but also it sort of indicates fire underneath an alchemical flask. And look at this. This is like a pair of arms here. This looks like a person standing here now. When you center it on the navel, here this could be the head, and here on the edge of the Earth's, of the atmosphere that I've been drawing, does that look like a comet to you? These look like comets to you, and maybe the stars behind? Well, it started to get more and more interesting, this thing. We're maybe looking at a design which has occurred throughout the majority of cultures that we know, and we can just find traces of it in the distant past. Here's a picture of the Buddha. He's Tibetan, you can see by the long ears, which probably make him around the 12th, 14th, or 15th century. He's holding on to the moon there. He has a pentagram on his chest. But what was interesting for me, when I centered him according to the logic of a 216 head and his navel at the center of this, I found that his finger is parallel to this earth structure that I've discovered, that I've recently discovered. Now this particular mudra where he touches the ground